Good morning, everyone. Welcome to American Scouser's morning coffee or tea with American Scouser. It's Wednesday, so as always, put the cape on. World's greatest dad in effect over here. No Gordo this morning. We're missing him again, John, but John is with us. He's all set to go for Europa. What's happening?
Yeah, tall mug here. It's hump day, so I needed as much coffee as I can. And as my tagline says, Europa is where it's at. Like, Champions League was pretty entertaining yesterday, but I have a feeling that Europa is going to have the best moments this year. No bias, just a feeling.
No bias at all. Yeah.
No bias at all.
Yeah, we will talk about some Champions League actually. Some good games yesterday. I don't know if there was any shockers of a score. I think obviously City almost had it, but you kind of knew.
Yeah.
I know, man. I hate to say when City is down, it's almost like until it happens, it doesn't happen because you knew. I mean, not to mention that was like the first time. I'm sure that team, like Denver Zagreb, is happy that they got a goal.
Right.
So it's. I don't think they had ambitions to beat City away at Manchester, but
It's really funny because Bleacher Report was like, Man City is down to Red Star Belgrade 1-0 in the Champions League, like in all caps. I was like, guys, take this down. We all know they're going to score in like 5 minutes anyway. Come on.
Ryan with us. Good morning, Ryan. Okay, so let's start with our headlines first. There's quite a few over here, so this is going to be the most. So a couple of quick ones. We'll cover those real quick. The stadium might be ready, or we're hoping that it's going to be ready by the time the action starts. This would be after the next international break, right? For the
Yeah.
Merseyside derby. So we're talking what, end of October?
Around that time, yeah. Honestly, I do hope that it does get like this whole thing has gone for a while, and the whole thing with the company that was working on it kind of getting what was the issue there? I believe it was something about like them moving, like not committing anymore, right?
I think there's a lot going on in the
Yeah,
industry in England. I mean, that was the issue. Like, they could not even find another company who would be able to kind of like come in and pick up the slack and continue where it was going
yeah, that's
from.
rough.
So a lot going on in terms of like the whole industry. It wasn't like something that was just like Liverpool. It was more really on the company that had the project to start with. But it's a matter of like, wrapping it up. I'm sure everybody wants to wrap up. It is still an odd feeling to enter a stadium and see like an entire portion like wide open and empty and stuff like that, even when you know the reason. So that would be a perfect timing, I guess.
Yeah,
In some ways, it would kind of like even add more to the whole ordeal. So let's hope for it. I think the initial goal was really to, I know, obviously, the beginning of the season.
yeah.
And then the second target day was actually this weekend against West Ham.
Hmm.
So they were targeting basically after the last international break, and still has not happened. It would be nice to get that going and create like even a better atmosphere. I mean, we're talking like 61,000 now, and that's part of the deal, right? I mean, it's a lot of inconvenience, obviously, for people that are like ticket holders, a lot of lost income for the club. So the sooner the better on that one. Jumping onto this next one over here, your Standard Chartered Player for the month. I mean, are we getting way too excited, way too early with this dude Soboslai, or you think he's the real deal? We're only getting not excited enough, if you will.
Well, I think it's just right. We've had a tough start, and to be fair, he coped really well, especially if we're talking about seeing how he performs in specific situations. I think he's pretty much stepped up to the plate. Like if we're talking about the hardest situation possible, which is down to 10 men away at Newcastle, he showed that he's willing to graft, that he's willing to fight for that position. He's not just, a typical midfielder, a flair midfielder that's really soft and doesn't want to get into the tackle and get into duels and all like that. I saw this stat, Tim. I don't know if you want to hear this, that he like got into more duels than Henderson ever did. I don't know if you saw that.
No, really.
Yeah, something about ground duels or something, and like Hendo's average and his average was essentially just like leagues away, meaning Sabozlai. So like it's refreshing to see a midfielder who's like literally box to box, all action
Yeah.
in that position. So obviously, we're yet to see him against the likes of Arsenal, against the likes of City. against the likes of Spurs. But you couldn't have asked for a better start, and I think it's well deserved. I don't know what you think.
I think so. Yeah, I mean, you got to figure it was going to be like very difficult because it's a midfield where nobody is comfortable. It's one thing to walk into a midfield as the new guy, and everybody else has been there for a while. This was like a kind of like a hot mess where everybody's new, so everybody's trying to get used to everything. No really natural number six, so we're doing this like three number eights working together, kind of an ordeal. Couple of games where we've been down to 10 men and stuff like that. So bearing in mind, I think there was already excitement of him coming in because I think all kind of like knew of him or had watched him in like different games and stuff like that. I know I watched him a lot with more. I probably watched him more with Hungary for some reason than I did actually with Leipzig. But I think despite all those like negatives, like there would be a lot of excuses, right? Like if you look at it right now, because of like, oh, it's a new midfield. There were so many games with 10 men, like his role, he's like learning the system, blah, blah, blah. There were so many excuses for him not to perform as well as he has. So you got to figure, despite all those, if this is the guy we get, I think it can, like, yeah, the sky is the limit, it feels like. So as he gets more comfortable in the system, I know we were talking about on the Monday podcast. Bickler even suggested like experimenting with him on the right wing as maybe a future, because that's what he mostly played. And he has the speed. We've seen the top speed. He has the speed. I actually saw a stat saying like, he was like the fastest in Premier League last week. I'm assuming he was like when he was pressing or whatever he was doing. But so he has the speed to do it. That would be an interesting experiment. But of course, as I say that, the next thing we were going to share was the fact that we just signed Doak to the. Nobody wants to see that. Doak to like an extension long term. Do you think we see him tomorrow?
Yes, I think we do. Although this is me fully investing in the Doak stocks, like I'm fully invested. I invested quite a few. So listen, like Klopp has a policy with young players. They rarely feature, and if they do, it means that they're ready. It means that he sees something.
Yeah.
Like for example, Jarrell Kwanzaa. Obviously, no one had him starting a Premier League game this year. Assuming everyone was fit, or even if anyone was injured or whatever. Right?
Yeah.
Like you would expecting him to like shoehorn someone into the position instead of playing someone relatively inexperienced like he did with Fabinho back then.
Yeah.
But yeah, here we go. He's there. He played and was actually really good against Wolves. Shout out to Kwanzaa again. So Doak, I feel like, is in the same mold, if you will. Like I think Klopp sees something in training that he's ready for maybe an impact role off the bench. Hell, he came off the bench against Chelsea.
Yeah.
First game of the season. So I think that like says a lot about him. So I think we see him tomorrow. The question is whether if it's in a starting role or coming off the bench. I honestly think it's a starting role.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that next because we will have the pre-match tomorrow. Probably a bit shorter. It's a midweek one, but we'll be on air like probably about like a half an hour or so before kickoff. We'll look at the starting 11 and talk about like what we're expecting. Let's see who's not at work or who's going to be sneaking from the office and connecting from the bathroom or whatever people will have to do. But yeah.
Come on,
like
man.
for John over
anything.
Here. Yeah, before I went on there, John was debating like, does he sneak out and watch the first half or does he sneak out and watch the second half? So, but then you said you had a bet, so that automatically tells me you have to watch the second half. That was not even the initial question. But speaking of center backs, so let's talk about this over here, which I think this is Echo's new brand of journalism at its best. But Joel Matip speaks out on Liverpool future and drops new contract hints. So, as a bozo, you're like, wait, what? So you click on it. And honestly, like what he mainly said was that, it's hard to walk away from, or you just don't walk away from Anfield and stuff like that. So it's more of his feelings towards the club and the city and stuff like that, more than saying, oh, yeah, I'm working on a new extension or anything like that, as the headline would suggest. Would you be cool with, as Klopp would say, would you be cool with a 2-year extension or even like a year extension for Matip?
Hot take, yes.
Really? Okay,
Yes.
I wasn't expecting this. Okay, so why? Because I would guess that if you are giving an extension to Matip based on what we have seen from Kwanzaa and what we hope to see more,
Hmm.
right? Getting more playing time, that would almost mean you're probably not getting another center back.
Or we could move Joey G to right back permanently and get a center back. Could be, right?
I don't know. I don't know if that's what Gomez wants, first of
Well,
all. But I mean,
what Gomez wants is not like Klopp. What Klopp wants is over what Joey G wants, right? Like, I don't know.
I know it used to be like that, but then he might be like, well, then let me go somewhere else where I'm going to play. I mean, I don't know if Joe wants to. I think he realizes his role and where he ranks.
Mm.
But when you take him away from being maybe the third center back, and now you made him a second running back behind, you basically put him equal as Costas.
Mm.
Like, we'll call you when we need you, kind of a status. You're not really going to bench the guy ahead of you. That's a totally different role that I don't know if he'll be cool with.
Well, I said I was really high on Ben Doak stocks. I'm not high on Joey G stocks. So if we sell Gomez, I honestly wouldn't mind. Matip is slow. He's declined physically, but I think when he's come on this season, he's rarely put a foot wrong. Like the Wolves goal, what can he do there? Right, Neto sped past him. That's fine. Like in the box, he didn't tackle him. Robertson should have covered that. Everyone was on Matip there. I felt like that was more on Robertson, but
honestly, like nobody put any blame on Szoboszlai, but Szoboszlai covers somebody that's not there instead of like kind of forcing him wide or like doubling him up.
Right, there we go. Like a lot of flack went to Matip to start the year, and I honestly thought he never put a foot wrong. Like he did his role when was called upon. Sure, he looked slow, but Ryan says here, don't sign Matip, get Virgil's replacement. I don't know, Ryan. It's just refreshing to see a player who actually wants to be here. Like after like the exodus that we had throughout the summer of players leaving for more money, it's just nice to hear someone say,
yeah, but nobody's going to pay Matip generational wealth in Saudi Arabia. Otherwise, trust me, he says now that, you don't walk away. But yeah, we've heard that's.
I know, Tim. It's just that I love Matip. It's just that
I love Matip as well.
Yeah,
I mean, that's the thing. And that's why I'm kind of torn on this. But it goes back to what Ryan is saying. I almost feel like I don't think you extend Matip and then you go get a high dollar center back, or do you? Or maybe they're not. I mean, I find them more as, they're related to each other. And, Ryan says you're not wrong, but the back line is a liability. And that's, I was kind of almost thinking, we used this summer to invest in the midfield, right? I mean, you rebuilt your entire midfield. So not January, but you're looking ahead to, if you look at it 2 windows together, let's say, your next area to address is your back line, and that's why you need something there. The front line, I think, is set. Obviously, if you move Mo, which I think we all are assuming is only a matter of like time or when it's going to happen, then you replace as with a right winger. But I think aside from that, you're going to get so much money from that you can get a right winger, and then you would also address center back. Maybe I'm wrong that Matip extension does not necessarily mean no signing for center back.
What if, Tim, he signs, but then he is essentially fourth choice, right? Like, let's say this: Matip signs, Mo leaves, we get the money, we sign a center back to be the second or third choice alongside Van Dijk. Matip signs, but is fourth choice. Would you be fine with that? I would be perfectly fine with that. Having a fourth choice.
Hold on, who did you eliminate? So you eliminated Gomez from the equation.
No, I move him to right back.
Oh, you're moving it to right back. So either way, you remove them from that area, and then you bumped Kwanzaa down to 5.
Yeah, I feel like Kwanzaa is still.
Or Kwanzaa and Matip could be 4-5 or whatever.
Yeah, Kwanzaa Matip could be 4-5 because I don't know. I'm really riding on this Matip extension. I don't know why I felt excited when you
got really excited when I mentioned. I thought you were going to be like, no, man. Like I thought you got really excited I
love Matip. It shows. Like I don't know what I drank this morning to make me like go, oh, let's keep him, please, let's keep him. Like folks, For all you know, on Friday I'll be like, yeah, let's sell him. But right now I'm high on keeping Matip. So
Yeah, something in that freaking coffee this morning.
yeah.
Even losing Mo, front line is solid, CDM and 2 center backs. I mean, here's a
Yeah.
scenario. Like we talked about it before. I know it's not a popular one for people to talk about, but I can also see a Van Dijk move to Saudi Arabia as well. That could be a
That's
player
not popular.
they
That's not
come for.
popular
Yeah,
at all.
I said it with a I put the disclosure at the beginning. Yeah, I mean that would not be uh out of the equation, I think, right? Because it's another player that would be a high profile defender going there. Maybe not this summer, but the summer after.
Yeah, I don't want to think about it too much because it's gonna hurt. But like, it does make sense logically. Like, it's the kind of player that Saudi would love to get. Obviously, arguably the biggest name defender in Europe right now. Like, if you think defender, no offense, but you think Van Dijk, you don't think Diaz, you don't think what's his name from Arsenal, Saliba. No, you think Van Dijk. So
Yeah, I think like name brand wise, yeah, you're definitely right.
So if he was to leave this summer or next summer, obviously he's declined a bit. Like, this is me with my objective cap on. He's declined a bit, so we can replace him, and that makes it a bit more intriguing. Like, listen, because in terms of his physical skills, now we're talking about Van Dijk now. His physical skills have declined, but I think that leadership aspect that you always mention with Henderson and Milner in the back line, that organization that he brings can be missed. Obviously, we won't know until he's gone. Like, these things you don't reflect in the stat sheet and everything like that. But I feel like it'll be a big miss if he leaves. So if we are to lose two of our most experienced center backs on the same window in Matip and Virgil, we're gonna have to bring two really good ones that are gonna adjust right away, because these guys. Everyone criticizes the high line about how it makes this risky. The timing that Matip and Virgil had at their best was so good. Like, whenever the opposition scored, like, I felt like 95%.
I like how you conveniently did not mention the huge era. What a hater, man. A huge era of Van Dijk and Gomez being
Who?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Come on, you didn't let me finish. I was gonna go with Gomez. I was gonna get there eventually.
Yeah, by like next Wednesday, maybe.
Wednesday.
Poor Gomez, man. Poor Gomez. You're like, at the height of their game, it was with Matip. Jesus. No, I hear what you're saying. Like, you basically need to replace him with two. You're saying.
Sorry.
If we do sell Van Dijk, we almost need to get two dudes.
Oh, absolutely, we need to get two dudes, and one of those has to be like in that really good, bordering on elite tier center back or elite center back, because like, regardless of what you guys feel about Virgil, like I said, that leadership, that organization is going to be missed if he leaves. So if we go and give away Matip alongside him, then you're going to have two new center backs who is going to play an incredibly risky high line and is going to have to nail the timing on the fly. So listen, it's going to take a different kind of center back, a different kind of IQ and communication for that to happen. And I would dare say that if that were to happen, I wouldn't move Joey G to right back. I'd leave him at center back, because you need as much people who know the system in that position there. Yeah, as much as possible. So
Saido says Kwanzaa and old Matip, if fit, should play. I think is what he means. I don't know. Like, I have a feeling we might see Van Dijk tomorrow. I know it's not just because he has not played in a while. I know he played during the international break, but you don't either as a sub coming in late, which I don't see. I think he leads the gang out there as the captain. And that maybe comes out in the 60th minute or something like that. Ryan says small sample, but not the best competition. But the backline looked all right with our Virgil last few games. I think it's something you have to get ready for. And I always feel like, I mentioned this before. I think when Virgil is not there, it's almost like playing with 10 men, where everybody says, "Hey, Van Dijk is not here to cover our back." So it's almost like there was an additional focus. It felt like in defending. I don't know. Maybe it just looked like that, but. Against Wolves, really all our troubles came from I mean, mainly McAllister, but even I mean, Soboslai and everything else, like losing the ball in midfield in really, really bad spots, and then everything kind of like gets with us. Oh, look at this guy! Look at this guy! Gordon is in the house. Gordon Lee, and then I assume the little one got a hold of the keyboard because the time goes TTG THGG7U.
That's cute.
It's like the ID over there. You always run the risk of teams overpricing their assets when they know you need something. We sell VVD, we better be prepared to spend big. I think so as well.
Very
But
well
I think
put. Yeah.
that's why you sign somebody and you don't go into the situation that you're talking about, John, where you're like, holy shit, they need two. Kind of a thing, like what we did with the midfield, basically, like what Gordon is saying, because we did that in midfield. They're like, these guys need to sign a defensive midfielder, and then everybody was like, that guy was 50, now he's 80, and then obviously we walked away. I think that was smart to walk away. Looking back on it even more now, but yeah, I think you get a center back, and then you are more open to if an offer comes to Van Dijk and you don't get caught with your pants down. Because let's face it, when these generational wealth offers start coming through, it's very easy to kind of like snag the mind of the player itself. So before it gets to that stage, I think you want to get some. We're gonna see what we get from Kwanzaa. I'm really careful getting overexcited of young players.
Yeah,
great
I was about to ask you, Tim. Kwanzaa stocks. Should we invest?
I think you should invest, but I wouldn't make it the entire portfolio. Let's go. Let's go that way. I wouldn't make it the entire.
Like how big a percentage of your portfolio?
I think I would invest a little bit and see what happens. And as I think we're gonna see him in Europe. We're obviously gonna see him in the League Cup and stuff like that. And then as you see more performances, we can start buying more shares before it goes really high.
Yeah, because last weekend he was arguably the most calm defender.
I mean, the first half, I really think he was our best player.
He was. Yeah. Like if you look at the right side, especially my boy Joey G getting nutmeg left and right, and Matip too slow to react. Meanwhile, Kwanzaa is there trying to hold the line. Like you wouldn't expect that from. How old is he? I always forget how old is he.
What is he? 19?
Right, like 19. Like again, not buying too much into Kwanzaa stocks, but you couldn't have asked 20. You couldn't have asked for a better start. 20, you said.
He's 20 years old. He's old. Yeah, he's 20 years old, but he's almost going to be 21 in January. He's old. I think he has shown in difficult situations, mind you, that he get. But now it's kind of like different, right? As a young player, when you get that situation where you're just like, go in and show me what you got, kid. It's a different mindset than, okay, now you're a regular. Can you do it day in and day out? Can you keep that composure? Can you keep that calmness? Can you keep playing? Can you get that consistency? Because you can kind of show up. I mean, let's face it, Ryan said we should sell him to Chelsea for 200 million. Yeah, have you guys seen the center back we got? But yeah, I think consistency is the key, because we've seen so many young players come in and then, have like a great FA Cup game or like 2 League Cup games back to back. And we're like, oh my God.
Why do I feel like you're taking shots at Nat Phillips there?
No, see, Nat Phillips, I still say Nat Phillips. I know there's a lot of Nat Phillips fans out there. Nat Phillips would do great at a team that's like, basically, Nat Phillips is a poor man's Maguire. I think. Like, they will do well on a team that's more sitting back. And then they'll put their big heads all over the place and they head the thing out constantly. But the moment you put them in a situation on a team that has the ball more, I don't think they're good against countering, and it'll get exposed. I mean, when we had Phillips and Williams playing back there, and obviously, that squad eventually made it to Champions League thanks to Ellison's header and stuff like that. But let's face it, we changed how we play a lot. We did not just roll out the same way and then have these guys fill in. We had to adjust. So I think Phillips will do great. Really should have cashed in on him. Same thing with Gomez. If you were not going to give him, I'm pretty big on Gomez as a player. I think he has a lot of assets that, he has the speed, he has physicality, he knows the system. And I think he gets a lot of, when Gomez puts a wrong foot, it gets blown out of proportion. As much as like Van Dijk can do the same thing on the left hand side, and is like, oh, he's not perfect, but
let me
we
tell
want
you.
Gomez somehow to be perfect. I just don't understand that
let,
thing.
let me tell you, sorry. last Saturday when I was watching the game, I was groggy as hell. But when Gomez got nutmeg, that woke me up real good. I was like, "What are you doing, Joey G? Wake up!"
But I mean, that's the thing, though, right? I mean, Neto would have given probably Trent fits as well,
right?
Or let's face it, Trent would have probably not even been there to be nutmeg.
Right.
So, but I mean, yeah, I think we did not have. We kind of left him alone on an island there, and yeah, Neto, that dude is.
Yeah.
Honestly, when we were looking and when we signed Jota out of nowhere, those are the two guys that I was like, man, one or the other. And I almost feel like Neto would have been a better fit in some ways to our system. I just don't watch him enough to know his defensive work rates and all that kind of stuff, obviously. But I mean, that dude can be a game changer on that left hand side. They just don't have anybody for him, thank God, in the middle who can like finish.
Let me give you a scenario, Tim. Salah leaves, move Diaz to the right, Neto to the left.
I don't know. Like, I don't know. Like, if Diaz, I think we should. I mean, it would be interesting to see if we experiment with that in these like Europa games and stuff like that. I mean, you can't just play rotation, so you're gonna put people in. Like, do we try? Nunez on the left, Diaz on the right, and like Jota in the middle, and like different variations of this thing to see. We experiment and see what we get out of it. But I don't know. It's a matter of I don't like hate it. Here's the thing. You got to be careful with Adama Traore gives people a lot of fits as well, with his speed and stuff like that. And this has been like an ongoing discussion at Discord channel for like months and months and months. But I don't think he fits, and I don't think just because somebody's giving you hell because they got all that space to work with, they're not going to have that space to work. I think like a lot of the mistakes that big teams make is you get this guy who, if you buy a player just because they're giving you fits and in an open area, they're like, oh man, they're so dangerous. But then you bring him in and they're playing against teams that are parking the bus all the time. Now they don't have that space. And if they're not good in tight areas, then you're kind of like SOL and you invested the money in the wrong spot. Not saying Neto is that player. I think he's very technically sound. I just don't know, like defensive rate wise. I don't watch Wolves enough to tell you defensive work rate wise will he work, because I think that's like the biggest thing we want from our wingers. I was listening to like they were talking. I think it was on like Sky Sports, and they were talking about United mainly and the wingers there. But you compare the work rates you get; they're not bad wingers, right? I mean, going forwards. I mean, you put as much as we like rip on him. And if he was able to play, like a guy like Anthony, for example, right? You put him on a team like Wolves and stuff, he would have probably given us fits when he had the space and stuff like that this weekend. We were like, oh man, this guy is really good on the ball. He's fast, blah, blah, blah. And then he would keep cutting it in and taking a shot with the left and stuff like that. He would do his normal thing. But defensive work rate was coming back and helping and basically being in the interplay and being non-selfish and stuff like that. Those are things that our wingers have, and hopefully they would never have. Next up, let's cover this up real quick. So you are signing Matip is what I'm getting out of this. That's gonna be like an interesting one, actually. So I would like to say I don't hate it. Mind you, nobody's saying we're signing it earlier. I think it was a month ago. The headline was, he's gonna play out his contract. And I remember at the time I was saying, like, I wonder if we could have got him 5 or 10 million for him instead of like running out his contract. But I know as a figure, you are losing a lot of. It's one thing to get younger, but you do need some. I was going to tell you that. I don't know if you noticed, but after the Wolves game was end, Sparky's okay with the 1-year extension. I think that's where I am at too. Give another year. I mean, you're not basically signing. You're not paying. So just same wages. Yeah, stick around for another year kind of thing. If you notice, like after the Wolves game, I was watching one of those videos that's like, almost like semi behind the scenes kind of stuff. And Van Dijk and Adrian were the ones that were greeting every player as they come out and stuff like that. And I know the club gets a lot of flack for like having a guy like Adrian on the wages he's at in the squad, despite never pretty much seeing him And honestly, it probably won't see him unless it's like a huge emergency, unless they give him the FA Cup or something like that. Um, you need guys like that. Like
Yeah.
you need some older guys to show you, to lead by example, number one. And obviously, if Matip has been around for what, 8 years or something like that, he does lead by example. I mean, he knows the system and he knows how to be a professional and everything. You need some guys. You can't just have a bunch of like 21, 22 year olds running around, because when shit hits the fan, you need somebody mature who's been there, done that, to say, guys, calm down, we got this.
Yeah, to your point about culture, when we were talking about the United thing, like there's a, even if Henderson and Milner have left, we have a team of winners. We have a team of people who's won it all. So the likes of Van Dijk, Salah, Alisson, Trent, Robertson,
Yeah.
like even Matip, like they've been through it all. They've seen it all. They've
Yeah.
won it all, and they've also lost it all. So they know how to deal with losing. They know how to deal with winning as well. So like obviously none of those like what I was talking about when I was talking about Virgil's leadership on the back line, that whole mentality, that whole picking yourself up after a setback, it's something that's not reflected on the stat sheet. It's taught. It's something that's integrated into the culture. And my reasoning as to keeping Matip is more of a sentimental thing, but that also plays a part, like the continuity. Like maybe Matip could take, like, say, a Kwanzaa under his wing. Hell, they're practically the same build anyway. Tall, big, lanky guy. Like if Matip was to groom Kwanzaa and to make him, like, let's say, the next Matip, that's not a bad benchmark. Because like I was saying, Matip in his prime was really, really good.
Yes.
So listen, I wouldn't be against it.
He was no Gomez, but I hear you. Yeah.
Who?
Was...
I'm sorry. I do not know where I'm getting this. It's something in the coffee, like you said, man. I don't like.
A lot of like a Matip love and like a little sprinkle of Gomez hate in this morning's coffee. I don't know why, but no, yeah, I agree. That's a really good point, actually. Not only winning but losing, and being in those situations and how to react to it. I think that's an excellent point, because, yeah, I mean, a lot of fans look at it like, he's old, get rid of that, get the 22-year-old. It's like, even in, like, you can't even do that in Ultimate Team anymore. There's some kind of a chemistry and stuff you have to do. They've even adjusted that. So, I mean, you have to kind of like look at those things. Somebody in that. And United is an excellent example of someone lacking that. I mean, probably Chelsea is another one. Continuity, not in terms of maturity. It's not about having old people either. It's not like you can drag like me in there and, like get anybody old and make it happen. It's just a matter of like guys who've been there, done that in the club, who know the culture, how to go about it and stuff like that.
Maybe I do, Alan. Maybe I do. But hey, I'm not the kind of guy who won't stand by my word. And you know what? If Matip signs an extension, I wouldn't be against it. I would be happy. And if he goes, I wouldn't be upset either. Listen, because either way, I think it's a decent proposition.
Yeah, I mean, with all the midfield mess we had going, otherwise I would have said, hey, if he was gonna go anyway, why don't we get like 5-10 from him? I mean, I'm sure a lot of clubs in like Turkey and them would pay like 3, 5, 7 million or whatever for him, for example. I mean, I would have loved to have him, but Fenerbahce, for example, like ideal for a system like that, for a team that's gonna have the ball a lot and he can push up and stuff like that. So a team like that, yeah, it would be ideal. But it's not in terms of people who we let play out their contract, is probably not the worst example. It's not like a Keita or an Ox where you could have gotten some money before, even if it's 10, 15, 20, and you just let it walk out the door. So I don't mind him playing out the contract, and I definitely don't mind him getting a 1-year extension. I'm with Sparky on that one, though, especially with his age. I mean, he's only going to regress. You would think he's not going to get faster or anything like that. But even this weekend, you kind of saw his ability to move up with the ball really, really screws with defenses. Mm-hmm. And I think one thing I did see, though, is the current midfield was not really as used to him pushing up in those areas. So it was kind of like, whoa, where are you going? Kind of a deal. Because you don't see that from Van Dijk, like he's not going to just take off.
Yeah, when he does that before, you see Fabinho immediately drop back because he knows. Yeah.
So like because one time he did lose the ball and I was like, oh shit, because I knew there was going to be nobody covering him. So I think, having that on a center back is golden when you have teams sit back in, your own, like, wherever you go, really. I mean, the time teams sit back against us when we go away. So You'll only get a bucket of chips and gravy for a matchup now. Probably, like I say, you would have gotten 3, 5, 7 or something like that. I think in the off season, I think you would have. I don't know what his wages are at, but Spike says we're not selling these center backs this season unless we sign another. No, I don't see it either.
Yeah.
I really don't see. I can, unless there are like injuries or something like that. I actually expect a very quiet January. To be honest with you, I know Ryan was saying, and I do agree with this. Like kind of like what Gordon was saying. Buy a center back in January. That's gonna putting a club in a difficult situation because they're playing out their contract. Otherwise, kind of a deal. Even if it is a buy and then come to us next year, kind of an ordeal, I'd be okay with that. Saido Orier was saying like he's not the type of player to lose in January. I think that really depends on where we're at in January. I think we're all hoping and thinking that we will be in good shape. And if we're in any kind of like a title race, trophy chase and stuff like that, I don't think Mo goes anywhere. Because again, we know that money is going to be there come June, July. And it will be very easy for Liverpool to say, dude, just hang in there for another 5 months. And then you can go get your generational wealth. I don't even know if Mo would ask. Sparky says, I'm okay with selling Mo for 150 plus in January. Think we have cover. I don't think we do. I do not think we do. Nuts in, I mean, we have cover. I mean, you have people who can play there, but I think you are losing way too much. So if you are in any kind of chase and you lose Mo, you lose your chase. I think you lose your shot because, I mean, just look at this weekend. Like everything kind of like evolves around him, and having Diaz on the pitch really helps Mo because you can't just focus on Mo. I thought like when we have Jota and Gakpo, when you have no speed on the other side, the entire defense kind of like almost like can shift a little bit over and block Mo's path. Whereas, you could see in the second half, he had so much more space to work with. And he was playing like a lot more central in the second half as well when we went to freaking like 4-2-4 and stuff. But so let's go to tomorrow. I was going to touch on Champions League, but really not much aside from like I watched the PSG Dortmund game. Did not really watch any of the after. Oh, I looked at a little bit of the Milan Newcastle. Then I watched the PSG Dortmund game, which I mean that PSG penalty. I don't know what we want defenders to do at this point. Like chop off arms, like a bunch of armless guys playing defense. I don't understand how that's a penalty. I don't know if it was like a PSG thing, but like watching that, I'm like, there's no way. Like he's right next to him. The guy is falling. I mean, like, what are you supposed to do? You have to have hands.
Right. But kind of like when I saw it, I was like, it's kind of like how they allow defenses in the NBA now, where you essentially have to put your hands behind your back to defend a player. So I was just like, what do you want him to do? So
this was probably, I did not watch it live, but then I think like Megan mentioned it, so I kind of like Googled it right away, and of course it was there. The keeper goal in 95 minutes. I mean, that is pretty darn solid. I know like Alisson's obviously in some ways was a lot more meaningful because of it, not only what it brought us, but in this situation at the time, having lost his dad and stuff like that, like where he was mentally and everything like that. But I don't know if you saw this goal, but dude, like that dude makes a run, and he's the only guy making a run to that ball.
Yeah, it's like a striker.
Yeah,
like it was like a striker in terms of that header. Like in terms of the positioning and how he made that run, the timing of it was really good. Like we talk, I mean, obviously we're biased to Alisson's header because obviously, like you said, the meaning and of course the placement of that header. Like you see strikers for Alisson's header, like you don't see some strikers don't make that header the way that he did. It was a really, really good header. So I don't know, like I'm slightly leaning towards Alisson, but this one, I don't know, this one could edge it out depending on who you're asking. It's just really
this one had the run to the ball, and perfect ball, by the way. All you got to do is kind of like hit that in the right direction. It's gonna go. I know what you're saying. Alisson is a lot harder because you got to give the full direction and like the full speeds onto that. But yeah, I think the Alisson one just obviously is going to mean a lot more to us. But I think in the grand scheme of things, I mean, did it maybe keep Lazio's hopes in the Champions League in that sense, and probably bring a lot of money, but it pretty much puts us back in the Champions League that season. I mean, it didn't pan out as great, but still, we were there thanks to him. So, but that was probably like one of the few. Otherwise, really, Barcelona beating up, City winning, Celtic losing. I don't think that's a shocker either.
It's what I'm saying. Europa is where it's at. Champions League is boring.
Europa is where it's at. So we start that action tomorrow. There are more I think there are more Champions League games today or something like that. Bayern United would be probably one that I will be taking a look at out of that, because that should be interesting. See how that unfolds.
We were
But
talking about betting at the start of the show.
you know what? Yes, before that's the thing with betting. Like, you can bet even after the game starts. That's the beauty of betting. It's not the stupid fantasy thing where you gotta bet at least that you gotta take care of your business at least 24 hours before and crap like that. So tomorrow's game, I really hope we have a boring game tomorrow, says Ryan.
Interesting.
I think like boring as in like we're up 2-0 and then
Yeah, I think that's what he meant.
Around. I guess. What do you expect to see tomorrow? What do you expect in terms of lineup? Let's get your lineup.
Okay, lineup. Kelleher starts. Gomez. I dare say Kwanzaa, Virgil as my two center backs. Kwanzaa, Virgil, Simicas,
Okay,
Endo. Yeah, Endo.
Okay.
McAllister. I
Ooh.
think I'll put him back at the 8. Like he was substituted at halftime against Wolves, right? So he's got a lot in the tank right after that pretty bad performance. I think he's got to make up for it, and he's got a lot in the tank. So I'd start him. His partner is interesting, but I'm gonna go with Jones, just for more solidity and fluidity, I guess, because. So it's Endo Mac.
We were going great. We were all on the same page. Now we're kind of falling apart between.
Who did you have? Well, you know, I'll finish off.
Go to the front line. Yeah.
Who do you have line? Front line, I got Doak, Nunez, Diaz.
So I probably have Elliott's over Jones.
Not a bad. Yeah, that's fine as well for me. Either way, it's good.
And I don't know. I think I have. I don't have Nunez starting.
I bet on him. So
recent, yeah, you bet on him, so that's why you have him starting. See, this is why you never bet on your team, bro. But kids these days. But yeah, I think because he was even iffy to play in the last game against Wolves, so we kind of saved him. He had like the muscle issues. He left everything. Sparky's Jones hates is pretty much equal to your Gomez hate, I think. But and then Saido will come in with some Hendo hate to add a boost to it. Gakpo over Nunez, I do agree with that. I just don't think you put Nunez out there knowing he just recently had muscle injuries. I think that's the only reason I'm not starting him. And he can come back. Klopp likes doing that, like putting the guys in for like the last 20 minutes who are going to maybe like play over the weekend. I agree with Dave. Like, he would do well getting more play time and probably get some goals and stuff like that. Oh, we forgot about this. Dom is right. Where do we see Gravenberch? Do we see Gravenberch?
Yeah, I think we do, especially if we're winning. Even if we're not
off the bench, though, obviously.
Yeah, off the bench for sure.
Okay.
Even if we're not winning, I see him coming in like a good 30 minutes. I feel like Klopp's going to start ramping up his playing time. I thought if I'm not mistaken, we saw him in the right wing.
Yes, he basically played the right wing the last 5-6 minutes.
Is that like, I really hope that's like because we're kind of defending a lead sort of deal instead of like Klopp really seeing him play. Like, because I was kind of worried there. I was like, does Klopp really see this guy playing here? Because he's a midfielder. So
no. I think it was more like, hey, we need to get you some minutes. Why don't you go take him out? Like, go take him out on the wing and play on the wing a little bit. I think it was just to get him out there, knock off the butterflies, if you will, kind of a deal. Get out there and play a little bit. But yeah, I think I like your back 5. So we're on 6. I put Endo there as well. I do like the max shot, and I think Ryan was agreeing with you too. I do like the concept of that. I just don't know. You're going to play again on Sunday, and we saw a tired McAllister and what he does. So that's the part that scares me. But Endo, Jones, Elliott midfield would be probably the only other alternative, because I don't think you're doing Endo and Gravenberch at the same time in midfield.
Probably not, yeah.
So it would probably be Endo, Jones, Elliott, or something like that. And then Doak, Jota. I think you do Doak, Jota, Gakpo up top. And because I want Mo, Nunez, Diaz starting against West Ham. And Ryan, yeah, I'll go with that. I'm sold. Ryan has sold me on those concepts. Mac for 45, Sub and Jones at half. That's a solid start as well. With Mac, Elliott, and Endo behind them. Who are you most excited to see? Who will you be watching with like a little spot on him as he moves around?
Oh, Ben Doak for sure. Like I said, Ben Doak
Okay.
stocks invested quite a bit. Obviously, there's a part of me that feels like we're putting this kid too high of a pedestal a little bit. Even though like I said, I've pretty much drank the Kool Aid, but obviously, there's no other way we can see him grow other than putting him in these situations. So like it's the perfect opportunity for him, away in against so-called lesser opposition. Like obviously that might come back to bite us, but there's no better time. It's not like it's a Premier League game. Let's see what he's made of, and I feel like his speed, his creativity is going to be a big factor here, especially since I feel like the opposition is going to be up for it. They're at home playing Liverpool, right?
Yeah.
So they want this to be an entertaining game. They're going to take the fight to us. That means loads of space for Doak. So I'm going to be keeping an eye on him.
That's good. That's a good point, actually. I really don't know how they would approach this because you got to figure they have to know. You go two ways against Liverpool, right? You're either going to sit back and try to counter, or you're going to say, hey, we have to take the game out to them because if we sit back, they're going to break us down. And you better be really good when you're coming at us and bringing the game to us because that can really bite you. But I don't know if they would think of it as you look at the group, and I'm thinking like, I'm used to these situations where you're one of the crappier teams in the group, like Fenerbahce and stuff. And when you look at a group like that, you have one big dog and you have three teams. If I'm like a team like LASK, I'm saying, hey, I just don't want to get smashed. Like it's okay to lose this game. This like when you're like looking at the like lineup and you're like, hey, 7 points gets us to the next round or 8 points gets us to the next round, whatever it is, you're automatically putting a 0-0 for Liverpool games and saying, okay, maybe one if we're lucky, we get 1 point from Liverpool because your opponents are probably not going to get points off of Liverpool either. So the more important thing to you is beating the other ones, while making sure you don't get smashed so bad that your goal difference and stuff is jacked up in the group. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, it's like a mini league of 4 teams. So if I'm LASK, I'm probably playing it safe, sitting back and making sure I'm not getting smashed. It will be interesting to see like what they do. Do you think they kind of come at us?
So that's what I'm hoping for, and I'm kind of leaning towards that because, like, to your point with the whole strategizing and everything, maybe if it was like game 2 or game 3, but it's the first game of the Europa League. So I don't know, just trying to delve into the mentality of everything. Everyone's going to be fired up. It's their first home game. They're playing a really big club. So I feel like they're going to try and come and, attack us. But if we score like 2-3 on the bounce, obviously they're going to start, falling back in, to avoid like a heavy beating and everything. But no, I think they start like really positive. And then, whatever happens depends on like either we score or they score, So
yeah, I think the first 5 minutes of this game is pretty crucial to calm the nerves, calm the stadium, and you don't have to get a goal or whatever, but you gotta control the game and say, hey, we're gonna have possession over here, like we're gonna dictate the pace, kind of thing, instead of chasing around. You definitely don't want to keep getting that crowd going more and more and more into the game. Dave says Doak is the sales successor he should get, but I think he starts. I do think he starts. He signed the contract, then he starts. It's like what a big week. And then he gets a goal. So everybody's like, what a week for this kid. In the commentator, I can already freaking tell. Ryan says we have a difficult match versus West Ham Sunday. Want to make sure our starters are resting up. And I think that's where I am at when we do this lineup. I think you're the same way, John, based on the lineup that you just made. You're kind of thinking more on Sunday and making tomorrow's lineup accordingly.
Right. In an ideal world, Salah and Sobos like don't touch that pitch at all. Right. Obviously, they will, like in case of emergency, because I feel like it's a two-way thing. You kind of want to get your business done early in the Europa League, like win your first 3 games on the bounce so you could just rest everyone else for the last 3 games. So it's kind of like balancing it out. But our good start to the Premier League is just that, a really good start. And obviously, we'd want to prioritize West Ham over this. Like, I don't want to speak it into existence, but if we draw this or if we draw West Ham, we all know that the West Ham one would hurt more.
Definitely.
Obviously, if we don't get something from this, like if we don't win, it's not the end of the world. So definitely West Ham is the priority. Like
Sparky has Gomez, Matip, Van Dijk, Costas, Jones, Elliott, Endo, Gakpo, Nunez, Jota. I don't like Matip playing back to back that soon, so that we can sign him to an extension. So let's. I think I'd rather have like Kwanzaa there, to be honest with you. There's like lack of options there, but and then like I say with Nunez, I think I'd rather have Doak up there, put Gakpo in the middle, or put Gakpo on the left and Jota in the middle if you need to. And then bring Nunez on the last 20 minutes to get him ready for the West Ham game. And then,
score a goal, hopefully.
If you're a last defender and you've been fighting Liverpool for like 65, 70 minutes and you see freaking Nunez coming off the bench, you were like, oh, God.
That's exactly why we won against Wolves. Like we brought on Diaz and Nunez at the same time. Imagine Wolves, right? They pressed like hell against us first 45. Second half, Klopp adjusted the formation and everything. And like we were slowly creeping into the game. Gakpo gets that goal. And then Nunez and Diaz comes in. Like I bet the Wolves players were just like, oh dear.
And that's the thing. You can tell, like, when you have a lead, especially, and they're still like down cramping all over the place, you knew they were knackered. And that's the difference. Like it's hard to keep that up against Liverpool for so long. Dave says, and this is actually where I was going to go. If they come, that's where I think Endo with a good game is key, and Jones too. I'm watching Endo this game because really this is a huge answer to, I mean, not one game. You're not going to make a judgment, but I think this is a good way to gauge what kind of a player we have, because hopefully we'll still have 11 on the pitch. And then, he's been with the team for a while now. I think even when we had 11 on the pitch, it's kind of not fair to throw a guy out there. I don't care how old he is, how experienced he is. Different country, different culture, different language. I know he speaks English, but all this stuff differs. I mean, if you've ever gone into a foreign situation, you kind of know how it differs. So I think now he's been there a while. We'll hopefully have 11 on the pitch. He's going to play in his role. So I want to see. I think like now we're going to see what we got. Like, what is this player? Like, I think we're going to see more of him. We've seen glimpses here and there, but it was always, like I say, he came in when we were 10. So he was more defensive, or he was afterwards, like when we were down to 10 again. So let's see what we got. I think I'm mainly watching him. And Ryan says, yeah, massive game for Endo. And I mean, like, it would be funny if he doesn't start after we settle this, but that's a different story. So prediction time. What do you got tomorrow? Vasetic may be off the bench for 15 minutes is my guess. Right. Just not risk the kid. He just come back to practice. I don't think he comes out unless the need is there.
I was about, when we were talking about the lineup, I searched, is Thiago available? And of course he's not.
We'll ask Anan on Friday. He'll know like what part of treatment he's in. But yeah, he's out. Trent is out. I think Konata is available, but probably won't be.
Yeah, save him for the weekend if he's fit enough, right? Like against Antonio,
yes, I think so. Yeah,
we need him and Virgil to be.
Yes, and that's like the biggest thing because Antonio, we talked about on Monday. He's really tight with Mo as well. Guardiola morning, he doesn't have begin. I'll tell you guys what. I looked at when these lineups came up over the weekend. You look at the bench of City. And you look at our bench coming out this weekend, and we definitely have a better bench. Huh? I really think, I know Silva got injured as well. I don't know how bad yesterday. I just heard, I didn't read anything on it. But I honestly think, look at these weekends. You know what? Now you're going to make me. I was about to dial it out over here, but no, hold on. I'll tell you who they had on the bench this weekend. And who we had on the bench this weekend. Okay. And you guys tell me who had a better lineup. If this thing of lineups. There we go. Okay, they had their lineup. Here is who they had on the bench. Ake, Sergio Gomez, Nunez, Oscar Bob, Rico Lewis, Calvin Phillips, Stefan Ortega, and Scott Carson, who are goalies, right? And I know we did not start our starters in some ways. So it's kind of skewed, but I'll change that just to even make it better for you guys. We had Konate. So instead of Konate, you would probably have Matip.
Yeah.
We had Diaz. Okay, let's say instead of Diaz, you had Gakpo, right? We had Nunez on the bench. Let's say you put Jota there, like if Nunez started. We had Elliott, Gravenberch, Endo, Costas, Basetic, Kelleher. You
Well,
can't tell me our bench over there does not look better.
well, I sipped corrected because I'm sitting down. So yeah, that's not. That was such a dad joke. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, everyone. Like it's too early for this.
That's
shit.
my job, damn it.
I'm sorry. Yeah, you know what? That's a pretty awful bench for City standards. But listen, Pep. Like I understand. Like it's a situational thing. Everyone gets unlucky with injuries, so you got to deal with it, brother.
Yeah, I just hope. I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like a couple of injuries for them would really derail things. So I mean, I'm not wishing anything, but it won't hurt. It won't hurt. Salif says, "Hi, good morning, sir." Okay. Prediction. I don't know. Did you ever give a final score? I was searching for the City's bench over here.
I didn't. 3-0 Liverpool.
3-0 Liverpool. Sparky has a 3-1 win. 3-0 from Ryan. I already forgot what I predicted on Monday. And it's Wednesday. Why not change it anyway? I'll go with the 4-1. I do think with this makeshift back line, we let one squeak in. Alan is going with a 3-1 as well. But I think we all predict a win. Dave Leslie's going 4-0. All right. It's like an auction over here. I got a 4-0. Anybody raising this? I like 4-0. I can go with that. I mean, I think Ryan might be right, especially if we get an early goal. We're not going to like beat up on him. And like I say, I think like if you're up 2-0, I think LASK is going into damage control mode, and they're not basically trying to like open up so that they can like get the game back. I think they consider. Yeah, see, Ryan says 2. Man, such a downer this morning. Ryan says 2-0 at half, boring second half. It's like Eeyore watching the soccer game. I don't know. That's what I think. Like LASK would then say, okay, we're gonna play solid. We're not gonna get smashed at home in the first game in the group stages, and that's when it becomes like a 3-0, 4-0, 4-1 kind of a game because we still get something. But yeah, Ryan might be right. There will be a lot of center back to center back passes in the back going on. He says it's a good thing. And how is boring second half a good thing? I don't But yeah, I mean, good for the guys, I guess. And that's why I feel like Van Dijk might start. It might not be like as taxing of a game. And then he can still like play West Ham, or you take him out in the 60th. That's when you put Konate, and that's when you put Matip in and stuff like that. Oh, okay. So will you be joining us? No, you will not be joining us for the pre-match. For the post-match, it's going to be the boys at night. Because we figured no point in having Mecca host a post-match and then restart the podcast right afterwards. But the Thursday podcast will basically serve as our post-match tomorrow. So the boys will cover that, and I think the fantasy boys are on right afterwards as usual. And they'll give the fantasy tips. I don't even know who's on my team. I couldn't even log in last time I tried. So I was going to go pick up Cancelo, and I could not. So kind of like bitter about that. I think Liverpool gets us the 4. Yeah, they might be right. It's going to be a fun game to watch. I like these games. Like I kind of like League Cup games in that sense because there are specific things to watch. But you guys have a great Wednesday. Thanks as always, John. Keep the hate going, and I hope you win your bets. But we'll see how it goes. Get yourself another cup of coffee, man.
I might hate Joey. I might hate Joey G even more if I have more of this coffee, man.
Oh Jesus, yeah, I know it was a poor Joe, and like I'm dedicating this show to Joe Gomez this morning. Poor Joe. I got his back. I got his back. But thanks a lot to all those joining us. Like or share and all that kind of good stuff. Don't forget the giveaway ends in 10 days. So if you have not already, go subscribe to our YouTube channel. And then if you have, go grab a friend by the neck and say, go subscribe over here. That is your homework for today. And I'll see you guys back Friday morning. Take care.